Well, welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Your Morning Coffee podcast, AI Roundtable number 2. We've got Kristin Robinson, who's the senior music business correspondent at Billboard, of course, also the host of the On the Record podcast. And we've got Vickie Nauman from CrossBorderWorks. We've got author and podcaster Bobby Owsinski and advisor and AI writer Virginie Berger.
Yeah, we've got a dream team here, Mike. You know, we've seen so many positive uses of AI. You know, Randy Travis releasing music post-stroke, Brenda Lee releasing Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree in Spanish. You know, we've got 11 Labs licensing music and voice, and Suno's audio workstation, and so many other things. But there's a whole bunch of landmines to navigate. These experts that we have here today, Mike, they help us understand the quickly evolving world of AI and how it works with the music industry. So now, without further ado, here's our special AI Roundtable number 2. Let it roll.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 On the air.
Standing by.
Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Welcome to our AI Roundtable number 2. I am so excited to talk to you guys. We had so much fun last time. So much has changed since our last roundtable. That was in February. Let's talk about a few of the developments that you find most interesting over the past few months. And Vickie, let's start with you.
Well, I'm definitely going to highlight the universal deal with Udio. And you know, I have been predicting that this is all going to be a path to licensing, and it's starting to show up. I think the devil's in the details, and we know certain things that at Walled Garden, it changed Udio from being able to download to creating a walled garden. Other licensors will certainly follow, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions, but it's clear which direction it's going in.
Yeah. What about you, Kristin?
I want to highlight the amount of quote unquote AI artists who are getting traction, whether that's TikTok trends, Billboard charts, Spotify charts, all that good stuff. Zanio Monet obviously has been making a lot of headlines, the first kind of public, quote unquote, AI artist to be signed to a record deal with Hollywood Media. I think we're really starting to see that, yes, there's a lot of very unpopular AI music that's on streaming services, but some of it is popular. I don't know who's exactly listening to it, but someone is. So
awesome. Virginie?
I would say technology that is evolving. We can see now, in terms of AI detection, you have new technology like B2B block, like neural fingerprinting, like, many different technologies, still very, very, very complicated, more and more complicated because, we also have to face like AI copyright laundering. We have to face with, many other issues. But it's quite interesting to see that in terms of technology, we have some new development using AI. So it's to track AI or to detect AI, or so it's interesting.
Yeah. What about you, Bobby?
Well, if you look at just music generation, it's gotten so much better as the popularity of AI artists has shown. But if you look just at my core audience and my core capabilities, which is the audio side of the business, not much has changed, believe it or not. Mostly because it's all based around machine learning and not large language models. So there wasn't much room to really go anywhere.
Talk about what that means a little bit, Bobby, for those that don't know.
Okay, so what we have a lot is machine learning. Basically, it's a very small portion of AI as we know it today. Large language models are different because it's basically an expanded, it has a neural network involved. So there's a lot of elements and a lot of layers. When we talk about machine learning, it's just one thing. It's recognize, put it like this, 10 pictures, 7 are cats. And then it's like, well, which one are the cats? And that's pretty much what it is in audio. It's like, well, okay, here's these 100 sounds that we know are good. Let's compare this to what you have right now, and then let's make what you've created, sound like this. And that's kind of where we're at with this. So it's gotten better, slightly better, but it's incremental. It's not a huge difference, and there hasn't been any new technology. There's been a lot of tries at getting AI mixing going, and that hasn't worked at all so far.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put my positive hat on right now first. So let's talk about some of the positives that we've seen. Obviously, the Randy Travis release was kind of a feel-good thing where he trained on his own voice and he had participation in that. Post-stroke, of course, he's not able to sing any longer. The Brenda Lee Christmas Spanish version was pretty cool. Endel Soundscapes. Stem separation. What are some of the positives you all see in this space as we sit here today? And Vickie, you can start again since we are starting with you again.
Well, one of the things that is definitely in, industry insider view that is incredibly meaningful to me because I have been doing this since 2000. So I have seen all these different disruptions. And this is really the first time that the industry, the traditional stakeholders, are not trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
There have been things that have come, around, Web3 and all of these things where they've sort of partially embraced them, live streaming, partially embraced them, mostly because they knew that they wanted to not get into a fight with their own artists who wanted to play around with these technologies. And so there was a kind of, hold your nose and see where these new technologies came to in the market. But with this, and it was a couple years ago at the Grammys that I started talking to people. It was a buzz. Everyone was talking about, what do you think about what's happening with AI? And there wasn't a single person who said, we have to stop this. We have to stop it. We this is going to destroy our business. They were all like, this is really, really risky. It could erode our business. It could erode our artist's business. It could change everything. But we have to deal with it because it's not going anywhere. And that is a watershed change in the industry.
Interesting.
Positive change.
Yeah, thanks. Kristin.
Okay, so I don't know. Do you know when this is coming out?
Next Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. So this is a slight preview of the next person I have on my podcast, Billboard on the Record, on Thursday of that week that this comes out. I have Imogen Heap on talking about AI. And I've been a fan of hers my whole life. I absolutely love her. And she made me feel a lot more positive about creative things that you can do with AI. She said, basically, to paraphrase her, that we're in this stage right now where people are using generative AI tools like Suno to essentially mimic what is already out there. And that is not very inspiring to her. But the idea that would be inspiring is when we push past that point and we do things that are novel and new, things that would have taken a human being maybe so much time that they never would have been able to really properly do it using generative AI tools. So I found that to be very interesting. Recently, she released a song where it's called Afterlife, where she sings and then she puts her own voice through like an AI voice filter of herself that she trained herself. And she kind of did it as a commentary on like the nature of self. And I don't know, I love that she's really trying to do things while keeping it ethical, while keeping it to things that are licensed and approved, that feel like they're pushing the boundaries artistically. So I'm excited to see what artists will do once we push past this phase of just like, can it make me a country song that sounds just like every other country song that exists?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Virginie.
So I won't talk about the artist because, Vickie and Kristin talked about it, and I'm sure that Bobby also will talk about it. So I will really stay on, I would say technology, but in terms of positive application, what I seen is, for instance, with AI, it's adaptive music. So it's a company that works with automotive, with cars, and they will be able to release. It's going to be a personalized LLM that will allow the drivers to create their music while they are driving. So it's quite interesting because when I talked with them, they told me that the automotive company told them that it's the only way for them to differentiate with competitors, because now car, it's a car, so it's you really have to find something different. So now they will be able to create adaptive music for your trip. You also have, everything in terms of accessibility, which is quite interesting for people, like having automated lyric transcription that also allow people to understand what's happening and to understand better a song. For instance, you have also everything in terms of royalty management and alignment of ISRC and ISWC. Last week, I talked with a South Korean company that is working on matching ISRC and ISWC, the big black box issue that we have in the music industry for 50 years. And they already have some pilot with Comcast, so the rights organization in South Korea. And it works well. So I would say that in terms of technology, so if you really remove the LLM side and the artist side on pure application for the industry, we can see more and more technology product evolving. It's far more concrete than last year, for instance, or than last February, and it's really interesting. I mean, the matching ISRC and ISWC, I was quite excited. I think Vickie can understand my excitement about it, and it was really smart for them, because they started with this DB and to see that they can automatically match ISRC and ISWC. And so they just started with the rights organization. But I told them, I mean, if you can fix this issue, it's a big market for you. So and it's something that it's moving forward. I don't know if it's perfect at 100%, but at least we see concrete positive application with AI.
Yeah, I feel like it's in its infancy, and I love, Kristin, when you talk about Imogen, I'm a huge fan too, and she's always been a trailblazer and a flamethrower, and there's nothing I don't like about her. But people like that, and if you've, followed Holly Herndon and her Holly Plus, and this last week, 11 Labs made an announcement about Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine about licensing their voice. And I thought, how cool would that be? And Holly Herndon does this too, where, you could have your songs in Spanish or Japanese or Russian or whatever. And I find that really, really interesting. But also, for those of us that podcast, how cool would it be to have that in our voice, in those languages, in those other places? So those are a couple of positive things in my mind. And I feel like there's always going to be those trailblazers, that step out and use it in their creative process and just sort of turn things upside down. Bobby, what are some positive things that you're seeing?
You know, speaking of podcasts, and I'll get to your question in a second, someone had copied my voice on my podcast and put it into 11 Labs and then did their version of my podcast. In other words, you know, completely different, but it was my voice, and then sent it to me. And I was shocked. It was really good.
I would love to hear it. Was it good?
Yes, except for some of the jargon.
Yeah.
So it didn't get that very well, but I pleaded with him not to release it anywhere else, and so far he hasn't. But he did it as a thought experiment, really.
Wow.
Anyway, to your question. So the things that are going well, again, on my side, noise reduction, AI noise reduction is fantastic. I mean, you could be, you know, in the worst possible environment and pull it out and sound like you're in the best studio. Wow. And it does it relatively inexpensively. I mean, some of these apps are just, you know, $39, $29, just do a fantastic job. So that's really good. Stem separation, track separation is getting better. It's still not where we want it, but it is getting better. So that's a good thing.
Well, let me ask you this, Bobby. Can you use those stem separators to make a Dolby Atmos or a Sony 360 mix? Are they that good yet?
There are some that are specialized in that, and yes, you can. But the same thing has always happened with this, and I'm going back to my 5.1 days, where there are some artifacts that happen that go along with it, which is acceptable on some level, and another level it's not. Audiophiles won't like it, but everybody else will be okay with it. Let me go in another place here. Sure. What was just mentioned about the fact that what we've been hearing, AI artists are kind of the same thing over and over. You know, why make another country song, an AI version of a country song that sounds just like that country song? And that's one of the things I noticed when I played all of the artists that have made, you know, some sort of impression, all those AI artists back to back. The songs sounded the same. I mean, they're different. Yes, the voice was different, the background vocal, and the genre, but essentially it's the same, and it was very boring. So just listen to a bunch of them side by side, and you'll go, I'm not so crazy about this. Now, that being said, there are some AI tools that will give you new ideas on where to go, and I'm talking about for songwriters in terms of song structure, where you'll put in the chords that you have, and then it will say, well, why don't you try this instead? And it will give you a different version of it, and actually some places to go that are completely new. And that I found to be really interesting. That was a good way to do it. If more people would use it, I think we'd be a lot better off. We'd have more interesting music.
Well, you're talking about AI assisted versus sort of AI generated.
Yes.
And I work with some pretty big songwriters, and they're using these tools like Suno to help them just create their demos. You know, they upload their guitar track, they bring it down in stems, because there's a big difference between a demo in Los Angeles and a demo in Nashville. In Nashville, it sounds like a finished recording, and it's recorded like the person you're sending it to, whether that's Morgan Wallen or Lainey Wilson or whoever it is. And they're using it as a tool. And I feel like that's a part of this discussion. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Part of the discussion I feel is missed is this isn't all about a text prompt generating a song. That's sort of a novelty. And frankly, I've heard a couple of songs that sounded pretty good that were done like that. But that's sort of the fun thing. And I, without getting in the argument that the end user is going to become the creator, let's talk about, some of those positive things about how we can use these tools in our workflow. Anybody, feel free to chime in.
I mean, I feel like that is where it's super exciting, and that I see songwriting, creativity forever changed, and it is all a tool. And I think there's so much oxygen being taken out of the room right now about prompt to music, and that it's going to cannibalize everything. It's going to just, be the the linchpin of DSPs. It's going to disrupt all of the recording artists, and I just feel like this is a parlor trick. This is temporary state. It's a demonstration of the capability of the technology. But where it gets really exciting is a creator tool. And Bobby, I think your comments about the songwriters is really interesting, because a couple of years ago I did a project for a company that wanted to invest in the creator tools market. And I talked to a ton of different artists and songwriters, lyricists, about what tools they use and how they create. And songwriting in particular is so ripe for better tools, because what people were doing is they were using the Notes app and voice recording app on iPhones, and collaborating, sending those to each other, and then also listening to some music on Spotify or Apple Music. And all of these different pieces were kind of opening up their minds to new chord progressions, new directions they could go with the composition. And those are all just these disparate apps that we have on our phones, but they're just perfect for putting together with the power of AI behind them.
One of the things I heard from a very top-level mixer in Nashville, he was sort of lamenting the fact that on one hand, on the other hand, he was marveling at it, was the fact that there were some songwriters artists as well, who got their catalog back. And they had 30-year-old songs that they wanted to update. And the fastest and easiest way was to use AI to do it. And that was a very clever way, I think. And then the second way is we have some demos and either don't have the money or the time to finish them, to flesh them out. And there you go.
Pete Townsend was just talking about that in an interview.
Yeah.
I saw that, yeah.
Very interesting. And just a question for all of you. Is there one platform that's sort of showing itself as maybe kind of the dominant one that people are going to lean towards? Or is it all still sort of kind of a scrum to figure out who's best?
Yeah, I think it's Suno for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the amount of money that they've raised. I know they're probably spending a lot of it on lawyers right now because they're being sued by a lot of people. They're currently, it seems, in a fundraising round. Bloomberg reported that, or they reported that it was over. I'm not convinced that it's over personally, but they, regardless, have a lot of money to spend and a lot of important backers, and I think that's helped them move forward in terms of the stuff that they're putting out. Suno Studio is quite impressive, and I think it gets them beyond what has been the stereotype of them for a while, which is, a song at the click of a button. With Suno Studio, they're trying to clearly target more of your Splice type customer, like a professional, not to say it's exactly like Splice, it's not, but that kind of customer, the producer, whether they're a hobbyist or a professional, and to offer more granular control. I think Udio is certainly trying a different lane now. I don't know how that's going to shake out for them. I think they need more licenses ASAP if they're going to be able to do this properly. But I appreciate that they're trying the licensing path and they're trying something different. But they, with this UMG deal, have decided to differentiate themselves very much from Suno and pursue more of a path of fan engagement and working with existing IP rather than fully creating new stuff. So their paths are diverging, leaving Suno kind of in the open lane of just, creating new songs. We'll see who shakes out at the top, but Suno has a lot of money. So.
Kristin, do you think that, because it seems to me that Suno is really taking this turn to be almost a digital audio workstation, that they really want to appeal to creators. And I get the sense that with some of the tools that they're rolling out, like if you are a recording artist, meaning, not that has to be your job, but if you like to write songs and record songs, that could be maybe the next logical step from your own digital audio workstation to help you create. Is that sort of what you're seeing?
I think they're definitely going in that direction. The way that they phrased it in a recent press release with some of the new rollout of tools for Suno Studio was that it's a generative audio workstation, a GA instead of a DAW.
That's a new one.
I must admit, I did write a write-up of that, and I said, like, they're coming to challenge DAWs. I think that seems very clear. The PR person for Suno did not like that phrasing, but I do believe that that's true. I think that they're clearly moving in that direction. It still leaves a little bit to be desired. You still need Ableton or Logic or Pro Tools at this point, but I don't know, give it time and maybe you don't. I would be definitely very nervous right now if I was a traditional DAW. I know they're trying to do their own kind of AI plugins and stuff like that. But, you know, Suno is clearly trying to be in that race as well as the kind of novice music maker space as well.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
You know, what do you think, Bobby? Because that's really in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's 3 or 4 companies that are trying to do GAUs right now. Some are completely coming from left field in terms of the interface, so it's one of those things that you have to get your arms around. It's not easy. That being said, there are a few places where Suno falls down. There are 3 that I can think of. And one just came to light recently to me is the fact that there's a tempo problem. And what it does, if you're writing a song and you intend to take some of the elements from Suno, plug it into your workstation, well, you find that it doesn't line up to the grid completely.
Interesting.
Now, at first I thought, well, this is actually a good thing because that's what humans do. I mean, they change their tempo slightly, you know, a beat here, 2 beats there. But that being said, this is random. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
The other problem is any kind of stem separation that you ask it for. It's not really good at that. And that's what mixers and producers want. So it kind of falls down there. The third thing, and maybe this is the most important as well, if you ask it to do something and it does it, and you decide that you want to tweak it just a little bit, well, it probably won't do it just a little bit, and it may take it into a completely different direction. All of a sudden you have a different song. So that's the frustration where I hear from everybody. It's like, oh, it took so many tokens to actually get it to where I wanted. When I started to look at this, it's like, well, it's almost like it could have done this, you know, the traditional way from scratch for the amount of time it took to actually come up with something, you know, out of Suno or Udio. So those are the areas where I see it needs fixing or improvement is a better way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Vickie, should there be a nutrition label for AI assisted or AI generated music?
I think there should be, and in my mind, I feel like it is a line where it is just completely generated, because I think everything else is going to be shades of gray. You know, there's the analog, you know, you're Dave Grohl, you want to record on tape, you want to go into the studio, you want to have everything be as pure and pristine in an analog world. And then there's going to be everybody who uses tools, and there may be a segment, you know, I don't feel like it's feasible to say, oh, this was mixed with AI, or I used a plugin, or I used a sample that was generated. But I do feel like people do want to know if something is, you know, purely text to music. I think that to me feels like a line. And I think a lot of people right now feel like, oh, that's, you know, that will just distinguish that as lesser than. I don't think it is. I think it's a different category that people want to see. I want to know what's in my food. You know, I want to know what materials are in my clothing. And I think people feel that way about music, but only if it's just purely text to music, and it'll probably disappear over time.
Yeah. You know, one of the things we talked about before we hit record is where this might be going. And I'd love to get your take on this because without being too cynical, I feel like right now we can sort of say, oh, well, this percentage was Warner Chappell and this part was, for master publishing. We can maybe use different technologies to figure that out. I'm wondering if we'll be able to do that with synthetic data or just down the line as we go. I tend to think that it's just going to be a market share play again where, okay, here's the pool of money. Label, you are this percentage, you're going to get this percentage of that pool. Am I cynical? Do you think we're going to actually have the tools to say this is what was used and this is how we can pay these people properly?
100%. I think that absolutely. Attribution is going to be a hard requirement. I've been having conversations with so many people in the industry, and that is going to be a hard requirement of any legally licensed model. Now, the way that these things always work is that you get a license in place, you pay a big chunk of money, you have a pool, maybe you have a pool of $10 million. For this, it's probably got a couple more zeros in it, but let's just say for sake of argument, you have $10 million, you're going to divide that up, maybe 50% go to the publishers, 50% goes to labels, and then it all gets parsed out by market share on how you do a deal. You pay that money up front, but then you recoup against that based on usage. And that is going to be output, and it is going to be based on attribution of what went into each song. And there's a battle of attribution systems going on right now. And I'm advising one of them. But I think, and Virginie will appreciate this, is that, we already have fractional ownership on the publishing side. And we're not managing that very well as an industry with over $1 billion a year in little black boxes all over the world. We don't have any kind of systems in place on the recorded side to have fractional ownership of recordings. And that is exactly what this is going to end up being, is fractional ownership. Maybe the person who created it gets a little bit. Maybe there's some Warner, Beggars, Universal, Reservoir, and they all get a percentage of the recording. And we don't have any systems to cope with that whatsoever. The only time we ever have shared ownership on recordings is when there is a featured artist. So that usually signifies that there's two different labels involved, but it's not split at the DSP level. It's split in a different way between the recording owners. So this is a train I see on the track that we are not really set up to cope with from a data and back-end royalty management of splits on the recorded side.
No, I agree, but I would say that we are not even really on the licensing side, because I don't really agree when I, about the word licensing for audio and UMG. I don't think it's licensing. It's just to buy out, versus a stock bump. It's what it is. When you look at, the date where Universal announced their deal with audio, it was the day of the earnings call, actually. And when you look at the stock during the year, the UMG stock, it was quite bad, actually. They didn't have a very good year in 2025. But when you look at this specific day, suddenly there was like a huge bump. So I attended the earnings call. I mean, it was open, it was public, it was quite easy to attend. And Sir Lucian didn't really talk about, licensing and what they wanted to do with audio. It was more like a seat, just buying a seat. We also know that audio fired almost everyone 2 weeks before the deal. So it's more, that's why I think we are very, very far from licensing, just because, like Vickie said about rights. I don't know if you have followed, the last statements about audio, UMG, and the artist community. So this morning, Songwriters of America, asked for more info about the deal, because they said that opt-in is cute, but we don't want to opt-in without having transparency about the deal. Outside of the US, performers' rights organizations like in France, Sadami and Spedidam said exactly the same thing. They said, yeah, you're cute, but you can't do anything without, performers' approval. And also, Universal can't sign a deal on the publishing side, which means that they have to get, they have to own the rights for masters, publishing, and performers. So it's going to be a very small size. So that's why it's not. I'm not sure that licensing is going to be easy. Regarding the platform, Vickie, you talked about fractional licensing on recording. Absolutely, but also we don't have an opt-in platform because we need to align master side, publishing side, performer side, and also monetization at some point. And we don't have a platform because, and also it's not only master side publishing, it's also CMOs outside of the US because they have exclusive mandate to negotiate for songwriters. And we don't have a platform like that. So, I know that, but now with AI, it's worse because we have to move forward, and we were not able. Absolutely, it's not a new problem, but now it's getting worse because of we need to license and we need to move forward based on the quantity of songs. Also, regarding the technology, the thing is that. We have AI detection, we have attribution, it's moving forward, it's not perfect, but we also have AI copyright laudering, which means that, yes, we can detect what we know is AI, but for most of the songs, we don't know it's AI because they use, the construction of the code just to eliminate, delete all traces of AI and patterns of AI. So we don't know. Even if Deezer say that they are able to identify 100% of Suno and Udio, yes, they are able to identify what they can identify as AI, but it's not sure that they can identify as AI. We now see it's funny, not funny. It's a bit funny, but not funny. We see that AI that is used to detect AI has started to hallucinate, which means that's why it's funny, not funny. It's because we've seen with text that actually the AI detection that is used to detect AI has started to hallucinate and to create new text and new reference for, and we started to see it in music. I won't say the name, but so I talk with researchers that are working on, AI detection, and so they use different AI detectors, and they told me that, it's something that they have started to see with AI detection. So that's why it's funny, that's funny, because it's funny, because, it's just, but it's not funny because it started to hallucinate. So yes, we have tools and technology, but we can't say that we are able to fix all the issues. Because we need to work on attribution, we need to work on detection, we need to work on synthetic data. It's what you say, Jay, because I would love to know in the Udio Universal deal, for instance, what they will do for version 2, version 3, and not only, for just the version 1 of, licensing. So it's okay. We have tools, but I can't say that we are able to detect absolutely everything.
Well, and if kind of like my question a moment ago, if who's leading the pack in terms of AI detection? Is anybody kind of standing out as?
No.
Well, Google has.
Yeah. And it's not the same technology, which is great because we can try different technology and see what works. And also, you have to update all the time your technology to keep up with the tempo. So I can't say that Deezer, for instance, is very well based on their own papers. They say that they can detect 100% of Suno and Udio, but it's not only Suno and Udio on the market. And also I asked them many, many questions about, okay, but how do you identify, copyright laudering, for instance? Are you able to track, data that have been deleted? And it's questions they don't want to answer. So I would love to know more, but they don't want to answer. I also asked questions about hallucination, and they don't want to answer those questions. So I don't know. When I talked with people, they also tell me that at the end, maybe AI identification, it's not really the path. Maybe the path is labeling, the question that you asked about the nutrition score. I think it was a question. But in that case, maybe making sure that we can add the version of the software, the AI system that was used, maybe. In Europe, with the AI Act and transparency disclosure, it's something that should be done. But based on what we see with the writing of GDPR, maybe they won't do it. So, yeah.
Well, we keep hearing about attribution and how important that is because that leads to the remuneration, right? Can we, it may sound pedantic, but can we actually take music, listen to it, and determine that attribution?
No, it isn't possible to do that. That's what a lot of vaporware, and it's like magic wand. What you have to do is you have to have a reference, So if you consider that all the music has been put in a blender, and all of the companies that did this were making a business case, the copyright is impossible, copyright is outdated, it is absolutely not possible to identify anything. And that has now kind of been put to bed because everyone is accepting that they have to figure out what is in the blender. And so companies are not going to get rid of their trained model because that's an important piece of IP. They're going to have to license everything, and then they're going to have some sort of a reference trained library that has metadata and that has all of this information in it. And that's how the attribution is going to work, is that you cannot just take a song and say, oh, that's, 40% Bee Gees, 20% Nas, and 10% Dre. You can do that by guesswork and by popularity of songs. And I'm sure some of the major rights holders would love a system like that. But to get to more granularity, a lot of this, I just don't see this as much of a new problem as other people do. I see this as a new version of the existing problem, which is there are catalogs and recordings and compositions and songwriters, and you have to put them all together. And there's metadata. And those are the same things that we need in attribution for accuracy, is really good metadata, because you're basically training the AI to know that this is a genre and this is a style and this is an artist, and you're teaching the AI to map that to the sound of a recording. And that's how attribution has to work.
Yeah. I think that because attribution is potentially not possible right now, and also we don't get very much visibility as outsiders into what deals are actually being struck by these large companies. I am very concerned that it's going to become a thing where I'm not accusing UMG or UDO of doing this, but this is just the clearest, most recent example of a license. So I'm just going to say that. We don't really know how they're going to pay out. There could be an instance where UDO pays UMG, and then it's UMG's duty to figure out how to divide it up from there. I don't know. Does it always trickle down properly? We have tons of royalty issues already. I'm just very concerned about that. Even if attribution was possible, let's say it told you, maybe it couldn't get down to the song level. Maybe it just said it's 2% Taylor Swift. Well, Taylor Swift has other songwriters, producers. How are you dividing it up from there? It becomes this whole mess. And my concern is that large copyright owners might benefit, but the people who provided the value by creating these copyrights in the first place might not receive the compensation that they need.
Yeah, this music industry has been built on some of these crazy shenanigans. Kristin, I wanted to ask you about something that I was reading about Breaking Rust, the AI-generated country band, and I saw these headlines, and they must have made you cringe. that this is number one on, Billboard or number one song. And then when you read a little bit deeper, it's, number one on some song chart, which is downloads. And maybe it was like 2,000-3,000 units that made it get there. It's not fraud, it's marketing. So we take a look at that. How do we sort of judge these, all these Xenia Monet, Unbound, Enly Blue, all these that Billboard covered last week, all of these AI generated. How do we have a yardstick to measure the success? Because it feels like a download chart really isn't a great measure of success.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all they're getting right now from my vantage point. I mean, Xenia, whatever her name is. I just heard, I think it's Xenia, I don't know. But she is on a gospel chart, which is not one of the most popular genres today. So the threshold that you need to move up a chart like that is pretty low. Country sales chart, that is based on mostly digital downloads or CDs. That's not super popular right now either. We have yet to see, I think, the big kahuna would be if it made it on the Hot 100.
Yeah.
And given that is a blend of all genres, sales, streaming, and radio, if someone is able to crack that, I think that is a true moment of arrival. I don't think these other stats should be ignored. I think it's very clear that things are really starting to move. And they're starting to find some level of an audience. But yeah, they're definitely some of the charts with, I guess, like a lower threshold to achieve success is how I'd put it. But yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes. And also, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these groups, streaming fraud has been an issue. I don't think it's for any of these acts. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the charts at all. They would have been flagged by now. But I think that sometimes when you see numbers online for a fully AI generated song, it is fairly common that then it gets taken down the next day, or some of those streams are removed suddenly. And that really points to someone using the song as a vehicle for bot streaming. But yeah, in these cases, I don't want to accuse them of that because they would not be on the charts at all. But yeah.
I have a theory about the downloads also that I think a lot of this is DJs who are downloading music to remix, and then they have absolutely no problems when they load it onto social media. There's no claiming on it, people downloading things and using them in the background, so that if they are content creators, they don't have to pay for that. They don't have to worry about claiming or copyright strikes or anything. So that's my theory of why a lot of the generative music is charting on downloads.
That's interesting. I also, one of the things that, this is just a theory, but I'm seeing a lot of AI songs that tend to do quite well in downloads that are also in genres that tend to skew older. I'm wondering if some people are like of older generations, just they don't even know that it's AI.
Yeah.
It's like the AI generated images that go around on Facebook, where anyone who has spent some time learning about AI could immediately spot it. But you see all these people, and I think especially seniors, that are just are not aware that this technology is out there. My favorite example of that is Shrimp Jesus. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
Yes, of course.
But I think this is Shrimp Jesus for them.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with my mother-in-law explaining lots of these things. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Gosh.
Oh my gosh. I want to ask, I'd love to get your opinion on a topic. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. They were talking about the technology, of course, now exists where you could go in and create a new album from an artist that has passed away. So let's take John Coltrane. You could go in if you had the rights from Universal and maybe from the estate. What are your thoughts about sort of creating new works from some of these heritage artists?
Yeah.
See, for me, this is very much like a remix. Back in the days when remixes were very popular for clubs. And I always felt that it was blasphemy against the artist to do something like that. That being said, most artists were actually pretty happy with it because it exposed them to a new audience. So I think it's the same thing here where, yes, you might run the risk of changing the soul of what the artist did, but on the other hand, it's a new revenue stream.
I think it has to be, the estates have to approve it, though.
Sure.
And look at, what Robin Williams' daughter, that all these people had been creating, generative versions of Robin, and, she just hated it, and she said, like, we don't want this, his art is enough. And I think it is going to come down, Biggie's estate might like it, but Jimi Hendrix's estate or Prince's estate probably wouldn't. And so I think, again, I see this as yet another shade of gray of an existing problem that's still IP. And I think it's going to come down to whomever owns the name, image, and likeness rights in the estate.
Yeah.
I would think that a lot of folks, the further back these people are, will be more likely to grant those rights. It's two generations closer now that just want the money. And I think we're going to see a lot of that stuff, unfortunately.
I like some of it. I heard that Oasis track, and it's Oasis or whatever. And no, it wasn't perfect, but again, it's sort of a novelty. Well, we've only got a few more minutes left, and it's always such a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yes,
I'd love to sort of end this on a high note. What are some positive things going forward that you think that AI is going to help, whether it's in music production, writing, recording, touring, marketing, whatever it is? What are some positives you think we can look forward to?
Bobby.
I'll go.
Okay.
I think that personally, I do not have an assistant. I don't think I'll ever get one. And I would love to have someone to help me schedule things, or some sort of AI tool to help me manage my calendar and my meetings and stuff like that. I look forward to tools like that because I think the music industry has moved more and more towards a lot of people having, I don't know, I think there's a lot of people in the music industry, this is not me because I work at Billboard, but that kind of participate in the gig economy. So lots of consultants nowadays, there's more and more people starting their own independent companies, and that's wonderful, but these people often don't have the ability to hire more staff. So having this as a stopgap would be really wonderful. That being said, that can get out of control and then lead to more people not being hired at companies. So it's a double-edged sword, but I would just like someone to schedule my stuff for me.
I love that. I read an article about bank machines recently, and that it didn't take away teller jobs. So just throwing that out there. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, for me, if I never hear another 1-4-5 chord progression in my life, I'll be perfectly happy. And my hope is that AI will somehow bring a new sensibility to how songs are constructed in a different way that hopefully is something that everybody can relate to, and yet is different than what we've been exposed to recently.
And Bobby, just briefly explain that 1-4-5, because most pop songs, whatever key they're in, they're a 1-4-5. But explain what that means.
Yeah, just think of any blues song you can think of. 1-4-5. So in other words, if you look at the scale, 1 is the very first note of the scale, and 4 is the fourth note, which would be a chord, and then the fifth is the fifth note of the scale, or the fifth chord. And it's a very pleasing, or it has been a pleasing combination for a lot of years, but maybe we've outlived its usefulness.
Yeah, I like that.
Virginie,
sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to. Virginie, go ahead.
I would say accessibility. So it's like Kristin, I would love to have someone helping me also, same. But when I talk about accessibility, it's also translation, for instance. It's really super helpful to use AI to translate like very difficult papers for, technical paper. That I can't read in English. I don't know why, but my brain needs to have it in French. So for my brain to understand, actually, because it's in English, it's already very complicated. So my brain doesn't understand. So thanks to AI, when we talk about attribution, or I'm used now to read very technical paper with very small lines, and it's really great also to use AI to understand better. So, I take a word and I ask the AI to explain to me what it means. Especially when it's very technical. So like that, I can understand better because I'm not an engineer or technologist, a trained engineer or technologist. So AI, I would say, help us a lot. And I was also talking with, someone from a Dutch rights organization who told me they do also the same. So actually we use AI to understand better technology, which is great. And accessibility, but we already talked about it. It's also like being able to, so how do you say this? It's not DAW, it's GA now. Yeah, it's the GA. Yeah. So it's for young artists being able to access, tools and technology that were not so easily accessible before, because it was maybe either they had to pay or they had to understand how it works. So it's like I hate the word democratization. I think it's an awful word, really. Yeah. But it helps young artists to access. Maybe music production or mastering in an easier way.
Yeah, Vickie.
Nice.
I think new creative tools. I think across the board, and I still believe that there is something that is magical about human creations. Human design, human compositions, human music, live performances, all of these things, writing, literature. But I think that, I see AI as has the power to transform that as an extension of human creativity, in the same way that Photoshop did not mean that it was a machine. Yes, it was this piece of software, but it was really an enablement to designers. And that's where I feel like we don't know. And I love an unpaved road, and I feel like that's where we are.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it.
Definitely unpaved.
Thank you guys so much for your time today. It's always educational. It's always so much fun. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Hugely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Thanks, you guys.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.